Deep within the Earth's most unforgiving landscapes, secrets lie buried, waiting for the winds of time to reveal them. But some secrets are buried so deep they may never see the light of day. In the vast, silent expanse of the Egyptian Western Desert, history holds its breath over one of its most profound and perplexing enigmas. It is a story of imperial ambition, a force of nature's unimaginable power, and the complete and utter disappearance of a colossal military machine. In the year 525 BC, a formidable army, 50,000 soldiers strong, marched into the shimmering sands under the banner of the Persian King Cambyses II. They marched with purpose, with the strength of an empire behind them, and then they vanished. Not a single man returned, not a single trace was left behind. For over 2.5 millennia, the question has haunted historians, archaeologists, and dreamers alike. What fate befell Persia's lost army? How could 50,000 men be erased from existence, swallowed by the desert without a whisper?
Our story, this echo from a distant past, comes to us primarily through the writings of one man, the Greek historian Herodotus. Often called the father of history, it is his account that has framed this mystery for centuries. He tells us of a time of conquest and consolidation. The Persian king, Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, had just achieved what many thought impossible, the conquest of ancient Egypt. The pharaohs were vanquished, and the Persian Empire now stretched its influence over the timeless lands of the Nile. But for an ambitious king like Cambyses, conquest was a fire that always needed more fuel. His gaze turned west, towards a remote but legendary destination deep in the treacherous desert, the Siwa Oasis. This was no ordinary oasis. It was home to the Oracle of Amun, a place of immense religious and political power, its pronouncements respected and feared across the ancient world. To control the oracle was to control a key source of legitimacy in this newly conquered territory. And so, from the grand city of Thebes, the heart of southern Egypt, Cambyses dispatched a massive contingent of his army. 50,000 men, a force capable of crushing nations, were ordered to march west, traverse the Sea of Sand, and bring the Oracle of Amun under Persian dominion. Imagine the scene. A column of soldiers stretching for miles, their armor and weapons glinting under the brutal Egyptian sun. The sounds of thousands of marching feet, the creak of supply wagons, the low murmur of voices in a dozen different languages of the empire, all soon to be consumed by the profound silence of the desert. They marched for 7 days, Herodotus tells us, moving from one oasis to the next, a river of humanity flowing through an ocean of desolation. They reached the edge of the known world, a place where the green of the Nile Valley gave way to the infinite, ochre-colored emptiness of the Great Sand Sea. And it was here that their journey and their story came to a sudden, terrifying end. Herodotus's account is both vivid and catastrophic. He writes that as the army pressed on, a wind began to rise from the south, a fierce, hot wind carrying the desert with it. A great and terrible sandstorm, a haboob of unprecedented scale, descended upon the Persian forces. It would have been a terrifying spectacle. The sky, once a brilliant blue, would have turned a menacing, dusty red. The sun would have been blotted out, plunging the world into a suffocating twilight. The wind would have howled like a vengeful god, whipping up a wall of sand so immense, so powerful, that it moved with the force of a tidal wave. The 50,000 men, blinded, disoriented, and utterly exposed, were engulfed. The storm, Herodotus says, buried them all. It entombed an entire army under mountains of shifting sand, leaving no survivors to tell the tale, no wreckage to mark their passing. They were simply gone. For centuries, this dramatic, chilling account was accepted as tragic historical fact. It was a powerful cautionary tale of human hubris clashing with the untamable power of nature. And yet, as the ages passed, a nagging question began to surface. If 50,000 men, along with their weapons, armor, and supplies, were buried in the desert, where was the evidence? Decades of searching, both by amateur explorers and professional archaeologists, have scoured the sands along the probable route to Siwa, and they have found nothing. Not a single Persian helmet, not a corroded sword, not a mass grave that would corroborate Herodotus' story. The desert's silence on the matter is as complete as the army's disappearance. This profound lack of concrete archaeological evidence has opened the door to a host of alternative theories, forcing us to look beyond the legend and question the very source of the story itself. One of the most prominent modern perspectives suggests that the tale of the Sandstorm may be more fiction than fact. Historians now look critically at Herodotus. He was a Greek writing decades after the events about the Persians, Greece's traditional enemy. Could his story be an exaggeration, or worse, deliberate propaganda designed to discredit the Persian king?
Cambyses was not a popular ruler in Egypt. He was seen as a tyrant, a mad king who disrespected Egyptian gods and traditions. A story in which his army is annihilated by a divine storm on its way to conquer a sacred oracle would serve as powerful propaganda. It would paint Cambyses as a man cursed by the gods, his arrogance punished by the very land he sought to dominate. In this light, the sandstorm becomes a convenient, moralistic explanation for a disaster, a narrative that suited the anti-Persian sentiment of the time. If not a sandstorm, then what? This leads to a second, far less dramatic, but perhaps more plausible set of theories. These hypotheses posit that the army did not vanish in a single cataclysmic event, but was instead slowly and brutally dismantled by the harsh realities of desert warfare. An army of 50,000 men is a living, breathing city on the move. Its greatest vulnerability is its supply line. In the western desert, the single most critical resource is water. The route from Thebes to Siwa is long, arid, and unforgiving. A single miscalculation, a dried-up well, a faulty map, a betrayal by local guides, could have spelled doom. Imagine the soldiers, days into their march, their water rations dwindling under a relentless sun. Hope would turn to anxiety, then to fear, and finally to despair. Dehydration would set in, followed by starvation as supplies ran out. The once mighty army would begin to fray, its discipline crumbling under the immense physical and psychological pressure. In such a desperate situation, mutiny is a very real possibility. Soldiers might have turned on their commanders. The force could have fractured, with small groups of men deserting, attempting to find their own way to safety, only to perish one by one in the endless dunes. In this scenario, there is no single dramatic moment of destruction. There is only the slow, agonizing attrition of a force succumbing to its environment. The army wouldn't be buried together in one place, but scattered across hundreds of square miles of desert, their remains and artifacts lost to the wind and the sand over millennia. Another intriguing hypothesis, put forth by some archaeologists, circles back to Herodotus' account, but with a modern scientific lens. They propose that the army could indeed have been wiped out by a sudden, massive weather event, but perhaps something more complex than a simple sandstorm. Could a sudden, localized geological event, a phenomenon related to the unique topography of the region, have created an exceptional storm? Perhaps a plasma event or a hyper-concentrated wind vortex, something so rare and powerful it would leave little trace. This theory attempts to reconcile the legend with scientific possibility, suggesting that Herodotus may not have been fabricating the story, but merely describing a phenomenon that he and his sources could not possibly have understood.
The allure of solving this ancient cold case has, of course, fueled numerous expeditions into the desert. In recent years, some controversial claims have emerged, electrifying the archaeological community. Certain expeditions have asserted that they have finally found what has been sought for so long: skeletal remains, bronze weapons, and other artifacts consistent with a lost Persian army. These announcements often make global headlines, promising a definitive end to the mystery. However, these findings are widely debated and have consistently lacked the conclusive corroboration from the broader scientific community required to be accepted as fact. The evidence presented has been deemed insufficient, the locations kept secret, and the scientific verification process incomplete. For now, these claims remain tantalizing but unproven footnotes in the long history of the search. The lost army of Cambyses remains stubbornly lost. And so, we are left standing at the edge of the great desert, peering into a mystery as vast and as deep as the sands themselves. We have the dramatic legend of Herodotus, a tale of divine retribution and nature's fury. We have the skeptical view of modern historians, who see a story of propaganda or a grim tale of logistical failure and human error. For now, these claims remain tantalizing but unproven footnotes in the long history of the search. The lost army of Cambyses remains stubbornly lost. And so, we are left standing at the edge of the great desert, peering into a mystery as vast and as deep as the sands themselves. We have the dramatic legend of Herodotus, a tale of divine retribution and nature's fury. We have the skeptical view of modern historians, who see a story of propaganda or a grim tale of logistical failure and human error. And we have the faint, disputed glimmers of potential discovery, promises of truth that dissolve like mirages upon closer inspection. The truth of what happened in 525 BC remains shrouded in the sands of time, a haunting testament to the awesome power of the desert, and a stark reminder that even the mightiest of empires can be humbled by forces beyond their control. The story is a void in the pages of our history books, a silent monument to 50,000 souls who walked into eternity. Their fate, whatever it was, serves as an echo from a forgotten age, a whisper on the desert wind that speaks of ambition, of loss, and of the enduring power of a great unsolved enigma. What truly happened to the men who followed Cambyses into the unforgiving sands? Was their end swift and violent, buried alive in a storm of the century? Or was it a slow, agonizing descent into madness and death under the indifferent gaze of the sun? The desert holds its secrets close, and perhaps it is the not knowing that makes the story of Persia's lost army so eternally compelling.